All right. 1 second before we get going. I'm going to let everybody log in here. We have participants loading in, and we'll get going shortly. Once we move that out of the way. All right, everybody. For those who have just signed on, we have about 16 participants at this time. If everybody could become familiar with the Q&A option, could you please share with us today your industry that you're representing and what you would like to learn from this webinar before we get started? Let's see what we have. No answer at this time. All right, we'll get rolling here shortly. I don't know why everything's popping up over there, but here we go. Welcome everybody to our Southwest Pennsylvania Energy Efficiency Roundtable webinar. Today's focus will be on the IRA tax incentives, our innovation in HVAC, and additional funding resources for industrial sites. If you would like to share where you're from, what industry you're representing, what you're hoping to learn from this webinar, you can put that in the Q&A, and we can follow up with more pointed examples, more pointed opportunities to help move this along. With that, we have some housekeeping suggestions. We have all attendees will be muted and their cameras will be off. Anybody, if you have a question again, follow up with the Q&A. If you have a question that comes up later, you can follow up with PennTap or any of the Roundtable partners or any of our guest speakers today. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on PennTap's website, and all participants will receive a follow-up. If at any time there is an issue, I would like somebody to throw in the Q&A that my mic has gone out, that the video has stopped. Those will all be very helpful to make sure that we have smooth transitions. With that, I am today's host. My name is Alana Colvin. I am the Associate Director at PennTap, and I will be guiding us through today's webinar. The webinar is being put on today due to Southwest Pennsylvania's Energy Efficiency Roundtable. The roundtable itself is made up of First Energy, Duquesne Light, Peoples, Franklin Energy, Willdan, the Energy Programs Office of the Department of Environmental Protection, Tri-Sector Advisors, and PennTap. We have also had contributing partners in the past from EGIA, the Keystone Energy Efficiency Alliance, and from PA Solar Center. So if anyone has an interest in engaging this roundtable, we're always welcome to new partners. The roundtable's mission is to help businesses and industry in Southwest Pennsylvania to reduce energy costs and improve their energy management, energy efficiency throughout the organization, implement cutting-edge technology, and the roundtable provides a forum to host educational opportunities for industry and commercial buildings. We've had past programs on combined heat and power, solar programs, compressed air, lighting controls, and chillers. So to keep on providing educational content that is relevant to commercial and industry buildings, we are always open to feedback on what others would like to hear next. Today, we are going to have two speakers. We will hear from GBBN Architects, and we will also hear from EGIA. After their two presentations, we will go into some additional funding programs and resources that are available to Southwest PA commercial and industry buildings, and we'll do a final Q&A. With that, I would like to introduce GBBN Architects.
Thank you, Alana. Can I share my screen?
Yes, I will stop sharing now.
Okay. Okay. Can everyone see our slides?
Yes.
Yes, looks great.
Yeah. So, Tiffany, you want to open it up?
Sure. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for having us today and inviting us to speak. And we're looking forward to reading some of the questions that you have in the chat. So feel free to put them there as we go, and then we'll kind of collect them up. So we're happy to be here today. I'm Tiffany Broyles-Yost. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Resilience at GBBN. We are an architecture and design firm located in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, Louisville, Kentucky, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Beijing. So we do a lot of different kinds of work. And I think as we have been designing for healthcare clients, for nonprofits, for higher education, arts market, et cetera, I think we were really interested in finding out exactly what the Inflation Reduction Act could do for our clients and to really help push sustainability forward. So we are going to talk a little bit more about all of that today. And perhaps before we jump into the agenda, Sean, maybe you and Stephen would like to also introduce yourselves.
Sure. I would just go back to the slide, who we are. I'm Shen Jiang. I'm the Director of Research for GBBN Architects. Stephen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, and I'm Stephen Mirjanovich. I'm one of the project architects out of the Pittsburgh office. Thanks.
Okay, so we will just jump right in. We'll give you a little bit of the context of the Inflation Reduction Act and an overview. We'll talk about what we see as the top 6 incentives from the law. Then we'll go through the key deductions, credits, and rebates. And then we'll give you a couple case studies so you can actually see how this might be applied to different types of projects. And then we will actually give you a sneak peek at the calculator, and we can walk through some different scenarios. You can go ahead to the next one. Actually, Shen, go one more, and then we'll come back to this one.
Okay.
So this law really does a lot of ambitious things. This is some content provided by the White House. And so you can see that there's an effort to really lower the costs for American families. That was part of the inflation reduction component of this law. But this is really the biggest piece of legislation that is trying to tackle climate change and really set us up for a forward-thinking, future-oriented economy. And for us at GBBN, we have done some research really to help give our clients a kind of overview of the law. And we felt like we really wanted to understand this because there are so many items that are related to potential funding for buildings. So we really wanted to understand that. And then as we learned more and more about the law, we felt like creating that kind of calculator where we could really input the information and see what was available was really going to be beneficial to us and to the people we work with. So we're going to show you that today. It gives a kind of rough magnitude or order of magnitude rather of the potential benefits and the types of funding that is available from the IRA. And so we hope that this really helps clients see what's available, make sure that they're setting appropriate metrics and targets for performance in their buildings and not coming just under being eligible for some of this funding. And then really, the big goal is to make better buildings, healthier buildings, and do that in a way that's cost effective. So you can go to the next one. There is a lot of, there's a lot of money available at the federal level. There are still some of the programs being written to deliver this funding. But even with all of this investment, this piece of legislation really only accounts for about 4% of global emissions, of reduction in 4% of global emissions. So this is a huge piece of legislation, and it's really important, but we also need to keep remembering that there's so much more to do, and we have to keep pushing in kind of every direction that we can. So you'll see here on the next slide, or sorry, Sean, this slide right here, that the IRA, as I said, really helps get us closer to what we agreed upon in the Paris Agreement. And as you guys may know, the COP28 is happening right now. And we really think that this is an opportunity to kind of strengthen our buildings and our energy infrastructure. So it's a bit about sustainability and a lot about kind of the resilience of both our grid, the resilience of our individual buildings. But the key things that it sort of addresses is lowering home energy costs for Americans, roughly about 4%, boosting rental and property value, increasing the durability. So we're really looking at that kind of resilience and creating more, it supports these kind of more 100-year type buildings. It's about improving energy security and then making sure that our buildings are resilient as we get more extreme climate events happening. And then really trying to future-proof some of the changes that we're seeing in our climate and the way that storms and things are affecting us, and really develop those stricter energy codes. And again, we can see here that that's really key, and that the changes there that you see in the Inflation Reduction Act are really going to be a big part of us getting to where we need to be. Thanks, Sean. Next one. But all of this is challenging, right? And changing from this fossil fuel-based economy to a more renewable one is a huge transition. But it's one that we want to do in a way that doesn't just kind of get us back to where we were, but does it in an even more equitable way than we've done historically. So collectively, this will affect jobs, energy, the environment, our health. And we typically see that the worst effects of climate change are really affecting those who have contributed least to the problem and are also the most vulnerable. So a lot of parts of the IRA really focus on the resources that communities have and trying to increase that resilience and make the delivery of this kind of carbon neutral economy to be more equitable. So it's literally looking at things that affect both health and the environment in places where it's been particularly damaged by industry and things like that, or where there are specific physical and health issues, whether it's related to asthma. So it does help provide affordable housing, fair paying jobs, job training, and then all the kind of benefits that come along with having a community and a neighborhood that is energy efficient, resilient, and non-polluted. So we will jump into more of the specifics now, and I will let Stephen tell you about the main 6 incentives.
Yep, thanks, Tiffany. Yes, so yeah, when we were doing the research, this is a big law, as Tiffany had said that, but there are 6 things that I think for the building industry that kind of rose to the top that we wanted to highlight. So I'm going to first go through those 6, and then we'll go into a deeper dive about actually how the math works in each one of the tax code sections. So the first, and I think the most important one, is prevailing wage and apprenticeship labor. So this follows, Davis-Bacon prevailing wage law, the cost structure there. It applies to all of the laborers who are typically performing manual physical work on projects. So that's your electricians, iron workers, equipment operators, truck drivers, any kind of general laborer. It doesn't apply to the administrative staff. And then the apprenticeship programs, those also have specific ratio and hour requirements that need to be met in order to qualify. But all in all, the big takeaway is this is one of the biggest multipliers of the cost savings that the law offers. Typically takes a kind of an incentive that you would get a base incentive and multiplies it by 5 So it's a big one to consider. Next one is energy efficiency. Obviously, this, we're trying to reduce the operational carbon of our buildings and make them more efficient. So this goes to give money for a more robust building envelope and your insulation, your air tightness, what kinds of windows you use. Also in the kind of mechanical systems, with energy recovery units, LED lighting, making sure your appliances are ENERGY STAR rated, everything you can do to reduce the load your building needs to use for energy. Next with that is moving to, we know in order to stop emitting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, we have to stop burning things. So transitioning from gas-fired appliances to all electric. So these are things like heat pump HVAC systems, heat pump water heaters, electric or induction cooktops, heat pumped clothes dryers, electric vehicle charging stations, any things that might have more traditionally been a gas-fired appliance. There is money to purchase their electric counterparts. The next thing that kind of piggybacks off of this is, if we're adding all of these new electric appliances to the grid, that's more demand on the grid. And obviously in our grids are not all ready for that demand. So there's an incentive to provide more on-site renewable energy production and storage. So these are money that goes towards solar panels, geothermal, any type of energy storage and battery storage on site. Things that can kind of try to do that locally and reduce the demand on the grid. Next is kind of the second part about the more of the equity portion is affordable housing. So there are this is a graph kind of showing the way affordable housing is traditionally thought about in industry. The term is AMI, or area median income. It's basically the midpoint of a specific area's income distribution in a community. So there are two big thresholds that the law incentivizes to. One is for kind of more this workforce housing, the 80 to 150% AMI. And then below that, if you can target an affordable housing below 80% AMI, there are two thresholds, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The last thing to talk about is the location of your project. So there are two things. There's energy communities and low income communities. Energy communities, which maybe not everyone's familiar with, are communities that were that are currently or formerly dependent, their economy is dependent on the fossil fuel industry. So like, coal communities, places that may have suffered environmental damage based on the fossil fuel industry, like brownfields. There are maps. You can see there's a link at the bottom right-hand corner that you can easily put in your building address and determine fairly quickly if you're in one of these communities. If you go to the next slide, the other community to be aware of is low-income communities. Same thing, there are links where you can easily put in your project address and determine if you're in one of these communities. So that's kind of a high level, those 6 incentive areas. I'm going to hand it over to Sean to go into the main tax code sections that talk through kind of how the math breaks down if you meet any of those 6 incentives.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'm going to guide you through 4 major tax areas that you can gain incentives. So 170D9 is a deduction, and it's for all commercial buildings, but it's definitely applicable to multifamily housing or residential, like commercial residential. So it uses a very important concept is EUI to measure the efficiency of your energy saving. So EUI is the yearly energy use of your building divided by your area. So if you achieve 25% of the EUI reduction above the baseline, you will get a deduction. If you don't use prevailing wage, so on the table on the right side of the slide, you will get 50 cents reduction per square footage. If you use prevailing wage, it's like 5 times more. You will get $2.50 deduction. So there are different tiers of EUI reduction goals, and then accordingly, you will get different levels of incentives based on that. So the next tax area is 55L. So this is a tax credit item, and it's energy efficient home. It's for home projects only. So I think the most useful is the second table on the slide. You will see if it's a single family or multifamily housing. For our calculator, initially, the purpose of that is to look at multifamily housing projects. So if you go the second table, say multifamily, if the timeline is after 2022 for projects, and depends on which certificate or also the energy efficiency goal you would achieve. So if it qualifies an Energy Star status, and then you can get $500 without, if you don't apply prevailing wage, the credit. If you achieve the zero energy status by DOE, then you will get $1,000 if without prevailing wage. But if you add the prevailing wage as an important multiplier, you will see an instant like 5 times difference. The third tax area is the section 48. This is also a credit item. So that's like, if you are using prevailing wage, check it or not check it, you will get different levels of incentive. So without prevailing wage, you will get a base credit at 6%, but there are additional bonus you can add on to it. So if say at least 10% of your building materials are domestically sourced, you will get 2% bonus on top of that. If your project is located within energy community, you can get additionally 2% on top of that. But if you check prevailing wage, you will start with the base credit as 30%. And then for each criteria you meet for the bonus, you will get 10% addition to that. And additionally, say if your project is in low-income community or qualifies for a low-income residential project, you can get additionally 10% bonus on top of that. So the final part is the rebate program is HERA. It's more for electrifying your home. And here the law used 2 important thresholds. That's the less than 80% AMI, area median income, that counts as affordable housing, or workforce housing is 80 to 100% AMI. So you have to get at least 50% of either item of all of your units if this is a multifamily housing to get the rebate. And then you will see different tiers, like if you achieve 50% of your units within the affordable within the workforce housing 80 to 150% AMI criteria, you will get 50% of your electrification cost covered. But if at least 50% of your units are affordable housing, you will get 100% of your electrification cost covered. And on the right side is all the itemized incentives you can get for electrification. But to notice that the cap number is $14,000. But if you meet several items like from this list, you can add them up to get the rebate. So those are, I think, the 4 major tax sections about the incentive dollars you can get. And I think I will hand it over back to Stephen to go over some case studies.
Yeah, so that I think that hopefully that gives you the kind of the equations, but I think what we wanted to do was show you how this works out on different projects of different scales, different aspirations for energy efficiency or prevailing wage or whatnot, just to see an order of magnitude of how this can play out in the real world. So I have 3 different case studies. This first one is a 100% market rate project, 92,000 square feet, 128 units that are all workforce housing within that 80 and 150 AMI rate. Doing some energy efficiency measures that gets you just at that 25% EUI threshold. but not really pursuing any prevailing wage or apprenticeship, not in a low or energy community, not doing any renewables. And so this gives you a sense. You can see those first two blue bars are what you get for that, just hitting that 25% EUI energy efficiency threshold. So about $120,000 on the table there. Again, if we would use prevailing wage, that would multiply that by a factor of 5. Oh wait, can we go back? I have one more thing. And then for the electrification component, luckily this client was already considering using a lot of electric appliances and mechanical systems, and was able to kind of balance their rental units of their efficiencies in 1-bedroom apartments to meet the rates that would meet that 80 or 150% AMI. So they were able to achieve a 50% rebate, on their electric appliances, if they were able to get their mix of rentals to that affordable housing threshold, less than 80% AMI, that would have doubled. All right, so case study 2, this is kind of on the other end where this is 100% affordable as opposed to the last one, which is 100% market rate. It's a little bit smaller of a project, about half the size, 40,000 square feet, 42 units. All of them are affordable, that less than 80% AMI. And where the challenge was, with our affordable housing project is budget and being able to really push the envelope on electrification and efficiency. But we were able, again, to get them to think about getting to at least that 25% EUI threshold. And because they were using prevailing wage, you can see that that kind of extra dark blue bar got them an extra $200,000 to take home. They unfortunately, on the orange bar, didn't the design hadn't pursued electrification as strongly. So even though they do have all affordable units, there wasn't really a payback. So trying to express how these incentives a lot of times work together to multiply each other. You have to have a good baseline and then try to get that multiplier on top of it to really get a bigger bang for your buck. This third bar under section 48, originally the project wasn't considering rooftop solar, but because they were using prevailing wage, because they were in a low-income community and were a low-income housing project, there was a lot of money on the table to consider to go rooftop solar. So it's that one, obviously there's a cost to that, just like there's a cost to all of these incentives. But that one is not something to be forgotten. All right, case study 3 is one that is, you'll see the numbers are quite high on these on this example because it's a very large project, 160,000 square feet, 170 units. It is a mixture of affordable and workforce housing, but was only able to get that threshold for the workforce housing to that 50% threshold. But it's very ambitious in energy efficiency. So it's passive house certified, 100% electrified, using prevailing wage, has some EV charging stations, and is within a low income and energy community. So you can see the savings here for energy efficiency and prevailing wage in the blue bars are quite significant. And same with the electrification. We're talking in the millions here. If you go to the next slide, again, this client wasn't sure if they wanted to consider rooftop solar, if they wanted to lease that with a third party or purchase it outright. But, quite a bit of money because of all of those multiplying bonuses in that from all the other areas that kind of go from your baseline of 6% up to 70% covered cost of that. So those were the case studies. I did want to give before we go to the IRA calculator and show you a demo of that, give an acknowledgement to our team. We had a lot of folks help contribute to the research of this, the presentation, understanding the tax code, and then creating the actual calculator. We also had a lot of help from CMTA, which is our MEP partners out of Ohio that have a lot of the same values of sustainability that GBN does. So with that, I will hand it over to Sean to show the calculator and kind of go through how that you can tweak different options to understand what savings are possible on your project.
Thank you, Stephen. So the last item, but not least, in our presentation is to give you a quick overview of the calculator GBBN has developed. So we will publish this actual calculator this month, actually before the end of the year. We're fine-tuning some numbers formula, but this is the interface. You can see there are 2 pages of this calculator. The first page will ask you some screening questions, like quickly, are you considering any of these sustainable solutions at all? If you check any of these, at least one of these, if you check at least one, that means there are some incentive dollars for you to consider. So you can register your email to use this, because by the end, you can send this report to your email address to see the details. But once you enter into the interface, you can start seeing you can put the location of the project, check if this is a project before 2027. You can adjust how many square footage is your building. Is that in a low income community or is that in an energy community? You can check yes or no, and all the calculation will be run behind the scene and give you the number real time on the screen. So we'll test run a few, just like, are you going to use prevailing wage? So once you check this prevailing wage, you will see the credit number changes instantly, because that's the biggest multiplier. And any of the electrification considerations for your project. And by checking these, down the end, it will estimate the EUI saving goal. So we know the minimum goal is 25%, but it gives you some estimation about, like, the more you check, the higher saving you will receive. You can check if you want to use solar PV or not. Sorry, how many dwelling units you will have in your project, and how many of them are within 80 to 150% rate. Let's try, let's say 20 units are workforce housing, 20 units are affordable housing. So by checking these, is that Energy Star certified or not, or DOE Zero Energy Ready? So you have to choose one or the other to try to pursue the certificates to get better results or get better incentive dollars. But overall, like, after all you input the numbers, you can see an estimation on the screen. That's the available total amount of incentive you'll probably get, and you can send the report to your address. So I think that's all we want to share today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And once we launch this calculator, you can test that on your own. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing all that information. If anyone online has a question, please ask it in the Q&A, and we will follow up here with GBBN now. In the meantime, I had a couple questions to just ask and give people that time to think. One of the questions I think would be common, no matter if it's a facility, if it's multi-house, if it's person, where are people going to apply for the value? Do you go to a specific federal website? Do you go to you guys? Where should people go to find where to apply?
I think our approach has been that we have come at this as a tool to give to our clients as an order of magnitude gut check, kind of generating ideas that, hey, if you do want to consider a certain incentive, this would be a potential payback. Does that feel like it's worth pursuing? Now, if the answer is that yes, we have had kind of clients then pursue working with a tax specialist who does a lot of work in this, kind of realm with the IRA already and is really familiar with the paperwork that would be involved to apply for that and kind of prove that you're meeting the requirements. And so that's typically been how we've been kind of recommending the flow.
That's perfect. That's perfect. One other question I had was, if you are aware, if it's been shared, is it a pre-approval process? Is it a process where you have to purchase the equipment, so therefore it's guaranteed, like I have committed to the equipment? Or is there a look back if someone's already installed equipment? Do you know if there's any limitations from those perspectives?
It kind of depends on which piece of the legislation you're pursuing. So, on things that are rebates, then it would be just like on your personal taxes where, did you buy an electric vehicle this past year? Then that, or that makes you eligible. So some of it are things that happen at tax time. So there, and then some of the programs around the legislation to actually implement it are still being written. So there are some things where, we anticipate that there will be additional incentives and pieces of fundraising that just the program hasn't quite been written yet. So the law has been written and approved, but not the method for implementing it. So again, I think the best strategy that we've seen right now is when we're working with clients who are pursuing either a renovation or an upgrade to their facilities or a totally new ground up project, we want to make sure that they are setting the right targets in line with the incentives and funding that's available. Because I think the worst thing that we would see is if our clients, let's say they have a new ground up construction and they end up at 24% better than code. The threshold is 25%. And we won't go into which code that is at the moment, but we would hate for someone to be so close because they didn't set the right targets. So that's, I think, what we're trying to do so that when you start out and when you're building your financial stack, that your capital stack, you can figure out where you need to be and what your goals are. There is going to be, you will have to document that. And some of that is still being determined. And that's really where your tax consultant can come in and clarify.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We did have a question that came through the Q&A as well. Has there been any success, or another way to phrase it, are you able to stack these programs, these tax incentives, with other programs such as utility incentives, the Act 129 incentives, among other incentives?
I would say, quite honestly, we haven't had experience with that on a project as of yet to be able to. I think, for at least from my perspective, I don't know if Sean or Tiffany had any insight from any of the research they've done tangentially to that.
No worries. So with the utility incentives, that program is specific to PUC, the Public Utility Commission. That is not tied in with the IRA funding. So the IRA funding itself is a unique bucket, federal bucket of money. The utility incentives would be appropriate to stack if you are reducing your electric consumption. If you are fuel switching, which the incentives, the IRA incentives allow for, if you're moving from fuel of some type to an electric product, you will not be able to take advantage of the Act 129 incentives. So as long as it meets the criteria for the different programs, there shouldn't be too many limitations. Things that I've, like as GBBN have mentioned, there's a couple of things about the program that are still unfolding. And there are other incentives that fall into the IRA value stream that's been coming through our state, that's coming through federally. Depending on what you're applying for, it is always a very good question to ask those you are working with, those that you're trying to get work done with. If you're applying for tax credits, if you're applying for other types of grant funding that falls out of the IRA space, make sure that if those funding mechanisms talk to each other. So if you have a limit of you're only allowed to receive X amount of dollars from IRA, will stacking those different programs interfere with each other, or will they lend themselves to what the project is you have in mind? Those are questions you have to ask, though, while you're building out the plan of what you're trying to do, and would have to take a look at before going into it, so that you don't end up in a position that you're stuck purchasing something you thought was going to work out, but you can't do all of it at once. Those fall into different areas, and it's always going to come down to it depends, but that's something to look into as well. If it's from other types of funding resources, other types of federal or state or private funding, that's like grant funding or other rebate funding, there shouldn't be an issue with stacking that, but always ask the question. There was also another question about how do you determine if the community is low income or energy impacted. So you had those types of categories listed as far as like those, if the community has an energy impact, what is the criteria necessarily? Are you following the EGIA Environmental Justice 40 or a different program?
There are links that in our presentation that we could possibly, I'm not sure if we can share in the chat, but there are websites you can go to and really immediately plug in the address to find that. I think I don't know, Sean, you can pull up that slide, but for the low income, there are some, metrics. I think it's about if like 20% of the community is below the poverty line. I think though, in order to save folks from having to do that kind of research, it's just easiest to go to the map, plug in the address, and then you can see, like, is it in that exact zone? That's kind of, I think, the fastest way to get a yes or no.
Perfect. Awesome. And I see those are being shared. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this information. This was incredibly helpful. I've had a lot of questions from clients about the tax incentives and how to utilize them. And it's all up and coming information. It's all out there, and people have a lot of interest in it. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share about those unique specific incentives under the IRA funds, and the different ways people can take advantage of it depending on their situation, their home life, the location they live in, the environment they work in, et cetera, the building itself. Very, very helpful information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to kind of spread the knowledge. And yeah, if there are questions for us, please feel free to reach out if anyone is curious about test running their project on a calculator. Could be happy to help walk them through that or share the link.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, but
so we were putting a couple of I think we were putting those in the chat, which I'm not sure if all of the attendees can see, but if one of you can make sure that gets to all the attendees, we're putting links to the two maps that the government has provided regarding energy communities and low income communities.
absolutely. After this webinar, we send out the link to this recording, and in addition to that, we can send away top takeaways. And so with the notes that you have provided and additional those links, we'll make sure that those attending today have those links available in that email that is sent out. Awesome. And so with that, we're going to lead in now with our next speaker, Eric Hatton. He is speaking on behalf of Electric and Gas Industries Association, or EGIA, and he will be discussing HVAC technology, heat pump technology, the innovations and changes that have been made over the past year. And so.
Great. Hello, everybody. Bear with me just a moment while I bring up my presentation. All right, can everybody see my presentation?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity to join this panel for the discussion. Really appreciate the previous presentation. Happy to share some insights from my organization, EGIA. Again, I'm Eric Hatton, the Vice President of Utility and Government Services for EGIA, and I've spent about the past 15 years managing and administering utility and government rebate programs, manufacturer rebate programs, et cetera. And prior to that, I spent a lot of time sort of in the critical power and cooling industry. So just real quick, an agenda from me will provide a quick overview of EGIA and what we do. You'll see that most of our work is focused on the HVAC industry, so I'll talk about some key sales trends and also the refrigerant transition, just as I think, you know, good information for anyone planning programs or relying on the HVAC industry as a whole. Hopefully a useful update on sort of what's going on currently. So who is EGIA? Not a really well-known name out there in the world necessarily, outside of, you know, the areas where we support our members and clients. But we are a 501c6 nonprofit membership association. We're based in Sacramento, although I'm actually based in Northwest Ohio. And over the past 15 years or so, I have spent a significant amount of time working with clients in Pennsylvania. As a quick overview, I mean, EGIA serves a large network of contractors, including HVAC, both commercial and residential, but also home services, insulation, windows, solar, geothermal contractors, as well as a network of wholesale HVAC distributors and HVAC product managers. Among the services that we provide to our members and associates are business education and training solutions, project financing solutions, program administration, and sort of trade labor related research and workforce development solutions. So going into that in a bit more detail, we really have four main business areas that we support. We've got our Optimus financing solution, where we work with over 10,000 contracting companies to provide them with project financing solutions. And in our history, we have financed over 450,000 residential and commercial projects for a value of $8.3 million loaned. Contractor University is our business education and training platform, serving over 1,500 contracting companies, providing them with training and education, not focused so much on technical training, but more business success, business development type solutions to help them be more successful and grow their businesses. The program solutions team that I lead administers resource conservation programs for utilities and other clients, including manufacturers and distributors of high efficient HVAC equipment. And in this part of our business, we processed over $1 billion in rebate or other spiffs and payments for utilities, manufacturers, and distributors. And then finally, the EGIA Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization funded primarily by EGIA, providing the workforce development solutions, scholarships, and industry trade research to address the labor shortages identified currently in the HVAC industry, but certainly expected to grow through the increased adoption of electrification, heat pump technology, and business growth driven through the IRA programs and other various programs. So again, trying to sort through all of that information, the things that we do, and I should say we also work extensively with partners like Hardy, PHCC, National Comfort Institute, et cetera, because we all really pursue the same mission of supporting this industry. So you'll see some information mixed in from some of our partners there. But I think HVAC sales trends are important, particularly for any of our utility program administrators on the call, but also folks just involved with the industry. Wanted to start out with a look at, and I wasn't able to get Q4 numbers in time for this call, I mean Q3, excuse me, but for the first half of the year, a significant change we're seeing, again, primarily with HVAC manufacturers is inventory on hand is increasing, production is decreasing because, as you'll see in following slides, sales have dipped over the past year or two, not past year or two, the past year. And, you know, the industry is looking very closely to see, is this a normalization after multiple years of significant year-over-year sales growth, or is it a true downturn in demand for the market? So, you know, following along at the distributor level, the previous slide was HVAC manufacturing data. Product typically flows through either reps or distributors into the marketplace. And this is a distributor-based information. I think the key takeaways here are, again, not only are manufacturer inventory levels increasing, but distributor product turn and inventory levels are also increasing. And while we see still a slight upturn in nominal sales, so sort of quoted sales that haven't officially, where the sale hasn't officially completed, actual realized sales, you have the 6% dip. So again, overall, a lot of the industry data is showing that downturn. How long that lasts and if it's a normalization or a long-term trend is yet to be determined. You'll see on a future slide here that really commercial HVAC sales remain stronger than residential. These numbers are blended. But again, you know, folks are sort of holding their breath to determine, is that really just because of longer sales and production cycles, or is the commercial and industrial market really going to continue to be a strong market segment for HVAC? So a bit too early to tell, although there are varying opinions on the topic. Just sort of more detail, again, publicly information detail developed by Hardy, the Heating, Air Conditioning, Refrigeration Distributors Organization. You'll see across the major manufacturers the same sort of trend. Residential sales and revenue are down anywhere from the teens up to the 20s, while commercial HVAC sales remain strong and you know, above average. So again, if you are purchasing HVAC equipment, I think it's good to know. Certainly, if you're a utility program administrator, you know, ongoing sales are going to impact your market potential and potentially have impacts on overall efficiency program performance. The next topic I wanted to touch on quickly is refrigerant transition. I don't have a lot of slides here, but I want to talk about it a bit and certainly take questions. So as many of us may know, the US EPA is requiring a phase down of HFCs by 80% by 2036. And so that has impacted the refrigerants that HVAC manufacturers and servicers are allowed to utilize in their product. Going back to 2020, excuse me, R22 production was banned. Existing systems are still allowed to utilize R22, but new production of R22 is not occurring. What that does is really lead us to increased service cost because it limits the available product to recycled refrigerant. So if you look at a longer term trend, that transition that began in 2020 really impacted refrigerant pricing and availability, really impacted service costs, repair costs, et cetera. So I'm pointing at that largely as an indicator that refrigerant transitions, although environmentally beneficial and you know all the other positive reasons to do that, do have an impact on the market and costs, et cetera. So that's a good baseline to see, wow, you know, in many cases, refrigerant costs went up by 300% as a result of the transition. So moving on to 2023-2024, our 410A has been identified to be phased out. Some of the timing and details are still being debated and discussed, but what you're seeing is new production phasing out over time, and that causes, it's going to phase out initially with residential, commercial applications, I believe 24, 25 or when we'll see the impacts there. But in multiple meetings with equipment manufacturers and distributors, this phase out is really causing a lot of uncertainty in the market. So part of the phase out is when manufacturers and distributors can stop producing equipment to use as the R410A, and when they should transition and how quickly they can transition their production to equipment using R32 or R454B. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and depending on who you talk to from manufacturer to manufacturer and various organizations, it's seen as a major impact for product availability because everyone's concerned about their ability to fulfill orders with current product versus can they meet demands as they, you know, transition production to new products, that sort of thing. And so for the market, it comes down to there could be equipment manufacturing backlogs. Quite honestly, you could see a fire sale also, you know, at the last minute for anyone who has product that's soon to become obsolete, still sitting on in a warehouse somewhere. But backlogs, inventory shortages, which could lead to lead time challenges for products and price uncertainty for purchasing is certainly a risk in the next 12 plus months. And then also, as we've seen with the R22, what the industry will have to transition to servicing existing product with recycled refrigerant, again, creating availability concerns and potentially significant price increases. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on the next generation refrigerants, R32, R454B, and where you're seeing uncertainty, well, maybe not uncertainty, but you're still seeing some ongoing debate is between the manufacturers about which refrigerants, to use, and some lobbying with the EPA to gain a favored status for one over the other. Again, there's some supply chain issues identified between the two products, which is going to be more expensive than the other, which is going to be more available than the other. And I think we need to see over the course of the next year sort of where the EPA settles and where the industry settles. So within the HVAC industry, this topic is just a cause of great debate and concern. I don't want to sound any unnecessary alarms, but I do believe this is something we should all keep an eye on, particularly for planning programs or equipment purchases moving forward. And that's it for me. I kept it short and sweet. Hopefully there was still value in the presentation, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions now or afterwards. And I'll stop sharing my screen, Alana.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was very interesting. I appreciate the level of detail that you went through for what the market's doing. I know a lot of the clients that I've worked with, they've had a lot of issues just trying to receive something that was what they wanted, like an equivalent of something that they wanted, whether it was a heat pump or HVAC rooftop unit with ventilation modular units, etc. There's been a lot of like, oh, can I get it? Can I get it for a price that's reasonable? And can I get it in a timeline that's reasonable, not maybe 2 years from now? So it's interesting to see that the market is doing what it's doing, and then just hearing what people on their shop floor are saying and what's holding them up. It seems like there's a good alignment, but it's going to be curious once the IRA funding becomes mass available and when other funding programs come out, will that supply chain impact the availability of the equipment?
Agreed. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty between, regulatory changes, how the IRA programs will be implemented from state to state versus, inventory and production capabilities and, component availability. Not to mention, the workforce situation and, labor challenges being, from what we've seen, a significant barrier to project completion as well. So it's a lot of uncertainty in the industry, and everyone's trying to guess, what the right approach should be.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. If I don't see any other questions that have come through, but if they pop through and you're still on, we'll make sure to reiterate those. If someone has a question later on, please feel free to reach out to Eric and he can follow up with you directly. I really appreciate all the time you've taken today. Next, we're going to go through a couple other funding programs that exist in Southwest Pennsylvania to make sure that everyone is aware and can take advantage of those programs or learn more about them as the project comes through, the energy efficiency project comes through. So I would like to highlight all the different providers in our roundtable, along with additional programs. Everybody who is part of this energy efficiency roundtable, they have programs to offer to the Southwest Pennsylvania industry, commercial buildings. They're looking for people to take advantage of these programs. This includes Duquesne Light. Duquesne Light has utility rebates. We mentioned those earlier. They're through Act 129. There are different programs through this through these rebates in Duquesne Light's area. these are the different contacts. We have Earl, we have Liz, and we also have additional programs that are available through Duquesne Light. So depending on the type of project that you have, depending on if you're looking to take on a new building, an existing building, a lighting project, a new fancy piece of equipment, but definitely will save me energy, it's a custom project, there's programs out there that you can take advantage of. There's also, if you have preferred vendors, if you like working with somebody, they have a vendor program that they can get on the list. You have to work with Duquesne Light in order to get the vendor on that list, and there's paperwork to fill out. But once you're on that list, then you can streamline the paperwork to receive a rebate. So I just want to casually go through these slides so that people have them. There's enough time on the slides. Know that Duquesne Light also has retro commissioning rebates as well, and that the project incentives at this time are around 8 cents per kilowatt saved per kilowatt hour saved. This depends on the project. This depends, like if you do a custom project, if you combine things, etc. So always ask questions, definitely reach out, and Liz and Earl are always open to having meetings and learning more about what your programs are. If you talk to any of these incentive programs before you start implementing, you can get the most out of their programs. They have to give away this money. It's part of the PA-PUC program, and they're required to make sure you give back. The reason you're required to give back, including for First Energy, if you're part of that footprint, is because you as a ratepayer have put into it, whether it's a business or otherwise, even residential, there's a line item on your bill that says you have committed to the rebate program. Thank you so much. And if you read into the fine print, it says if you ever want to take advantage of that rebate, that would be super cool. It's your money anyways. So definitely always check in to see if you have a rebate available through your electric utility. Franklin Energy is also working with First Energy. First Energy includes West Penn Power, it includes Penelec, it includes MedEd. It's all of their different programs. They have the same, those First Energy programs have the same Incentive Act 129 programs. So here you have Franklin, you have Willdan. They are two separate rebate providers that do a couple different things. You'll either fall into the one program or the other program. They are throughout the state. Here's some contact information, Deanna Weaver or Ray Murphy. They are fantastic resources that you can reach out to, and they'll line you up with who is the right resource. Instead of you trying to track it down, they can coordinate you. So as mentioned with Duquesne Light, the typical rebate for First Energy clients, ratepayers, is around 5 cents. Note that right now they've actually doubled that until the end of the first quarter. So you could get up to 10 cents for your projects, your lighting projects, your HVAC projects, recommissioning, new building. Depending on, always talk to somebody, always make sure that it's an appropriate project, that it makes sense. But they have absolutely incentivized this to be a little bit heavier hitting. So I would recommend checking that out. Willdan is the other provider. They do a lot of building tune-up. So if you have, need to look at seals, you need to look at the maintenance of your equipment, which all adds up, but makes your equipment run longer, makes the energy efficiency portion last longer. You can take advantage of Willdan. Plus they do the building retuning, retro commissioning side of things, and they also have new construction programs as well. In addition to Duquesne Light, First Energy has a similar program for retro commissioning. People's Gas has programs. They come and go, so always check out if you do have gas. Check out their programs to see if there's anything you can do to help that fuel type. We did push a lot of conversation on electrification, but it is the world that we live in right now. People have gas, people have other types of fuel. So check this out and make sure that you look into their programs and see what's coming through, especially in new vehicles too. There are different types of vehicles out there besides electric. You can check out Tri-Sector Advisors. They provide all kinds of information on transportation. They have information on different types of vehicles, whether that is electric, but also compressed natural gas or compressed propane, and how those vehicles work. And maybe that's a solution for you in your fleet vehicles. They also help with ESG incentive related communications and greenhouse gas reporting. They offer a lot to make sure that you are actively telling your story on what you are doing in the sustainable fill in the blank mission that your company is actively chasing. So highly recommend asking them for advice and seeing what other programs are out there so that you tell your story to make sure that people recognize all the efforts that you're putting into your programs. And in addition, they can also connect you with unique programs that are out there, such as the diesel displacer program, among some other vehicle programs. So if this is something that seems like maybe this would work for you, check it out and see what's there and see if this is something you can take advantage of. There's also programs through the Energy Office at the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection through the state of Pennsylvania. They have all kinds of financial programs, grant programs. They're going to expand in the 2024 year with new programs. So always come in and check in and see what's going on, see if there's something available. They have transportation, they have energy efficiency, they have different types of industry programs if you're under a specific program, and they also have an EG map, so that's environmental justice map. A lot of different programs are going to be asking, are you in an environmental justice area? And in the state of PA, we have a map. It's located through the DEP's website, and you can check out to see, yes, I am, or maybe I'm adjacent to, or no, I'm not. And that would actually flex out your funding, flex out different opportunities that might be available to you. So I would definitely take time to investigate that. In addition to what others are doing, we have PennTap. PennTap is made up of 9 individuals here who are able to help you look through your building, see what's going on, see if there's some project that you can take advantage of, and then follow through with the funding that's been discussed today or other opportunities that we are discussing, and can reach out to you and see what that looks like. We have energy managers, we have Green Belt, Six Sigma, we have engineers and environmental scientists on staff. We also have a certified water efficiency professional. Our services are pollution prevention and energy efficiency projects. Those are our walkthroughs where we go through your site, your manufacturing site, agriculture or small business, and we can look through and see what is it that you have, what could we prioritize to save you energy, to reduce your costs, to maybe increase your production and improve your overall systems. We also work a lot with innovation and the University of Penn State. We look at, hey, can you access the students? Can you take advantage of the faculty, the staff? Can you take advantage of the facilities, whether that's any of the campuses, any of those programs? We will find connections with product development. We'll also assist in helping fill gaps in your organization, whether if that's a innovation gap need or a workforce development, et cetera. If the university has a program, we'll make sure to connect you with that program and help you out there. And we are a regional based group, so there are 6 regions, and in those regions we have a local advisor. So that person will know the programs in their area, they know the campuses in their area, and can help you connect to who or what you need to do, whether it's an energy efficiency project or if it's an innovation university-based project. There are other programs out there that I would love you to be familiar with. There is the Desire with North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. That program will filter through all the federal funding that's available and state funding that's available. So not necessarily the private funding that's available, but you can go through their website, you click on the state Pennsylvania, and then it will drop down to show energy efficiency type funding, or it will show renewable energy type funding. There is the small business development centers throughout the state of Pennsylvania. They will help you with business cases. They will help you with loans. They will help connect you with who you need to enhance your market base, to enhance your outreach. In Southwest Pennsylvania, we have Catalyst Connection as our IRC PA partner network. So you have Made in PA in the top right corner, and the bottom left, we have Catalyst Connection. Those programs are aligned. So if there's something where you need help supporting your business and it's outside of SBDC, but more in line with innovation, manufacturing, workforce development space, the product, you can absolutely reach out to them. They can work with you. They can also lead you to sources of funding. There is also the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, the DCED, through the state of Pennsylvania. They are constantly having new grants available, new different types of unique loans available. Definitely make sure you're familiar with their website, their lending and funding website, so that you can take advantage of those programs. Sometimes when programs pop up on their sites, it might only be open for 90 days. So I would definitely recommend checking in about once a quarter across all of these different organizations. Maybe some of them could be once a year or every 6 months. Innovation Works, they will help you with any type of new technology, new innovation, new product development. They are a fantastic resource and also help you connect with additional funding resources. Also to shout out, if you're considered rural, and Southwest PA has a lot of what is considered rural, they have a map to tell you that eligibility. But if you go to their website under rural development, under the Rural Energy for American program, they have funding available, grants available for small rural businesses, small to mid-size, and agricultural related businesses. So these are all different programs that you should definitely check out and see if they make sense for you. And by all means, if you can stack these different programs, that would be a huge win for you. These programs do not talk to each other in the way that the funding buckets work. We all work together. We all make sure that the clients can take advantage of these programs, but the Act 129 rebates are unique to their program, as is the Catalyst Connections funding for innovation and development, along with Innovations Works programs, along with other state and federal programs. There are different ones out there that you should take advantage of. With that, these are our names. These are all the people who you can contact from the different groups that make up our roundtable. William Sapone with the Tri-Sector, Deanna Weaver with First Energy, Franklin Energy. We have Earl Serrain with Duquesne Light. We have Liz McQuaid for Franklin Duquesne Light, Eric Menard for Wildan, and Douglas Bush for Peoples. And with that, I'm Alana Colvin with PennTap, and thank you so much for attending today. I'll take a few moments to see if there's any questions. Doesn't appear so. So with that, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.